أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله. استغفر الله. استغفر الله. السلام كالسلام. تبارك ذو الجلال والإكرام. اللهم إنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Today we begin looking at ayat number 9 from Surah Al-Ahqaf onwards. And in this selection, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about a commandment that He gave to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a statement that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commanded to issue everyone. And this goes and shows the beauty of our deen, that in our deen Tawheed is pure. Tawheed in our deen is pure, and no other tradition in the world. I'm not selectively choosing and picking one religious tradition, but no religious tradition in the world exemplifies Tawheed like our deen. If you look to any other faith that considers itself monotheistic, no other tradition gives all human beings unequivocally the same status as human beings, besides Islam. In our deen, the Anbiya are the most respected, the most revered. We respect our Anbiya more than any other religious tradition, but at the same time, we don't go above and beyond. As the Prophet ﷺ described himself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to describe himself as one of the believers, the first to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we look at other faith traditions, the opposite is true. Human beings are given authority to speak on God's behalf, even if it goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself said. And the examples of that are many. But in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say, قُلْ مَا كُنْتُ بِدْعًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ إِنْ أَتَّبِعُ إِلَّا مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْ وَمَا أَنَا إِلَّا نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being asked to tell the people. Now remember, people in religious authority oftentimes took advantage of their subjects, the ulama of the past took advantage of their congregants by selectively making themselves exclusively close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, exclusively accessible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everyone else was in the dark. Everyone else relied upon them for their salvation. Now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the other hand, is being asked to say what? Number one, I am not an innovation, or in other words, I am not a new type of messenger that's being sent, but rather I am exactly how all other previous prophets and messengers have come. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the command to convey. That's it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your job is not hidayah. Your job is simply to convey. وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ, and I do not know what will be done to me. I do not know what will happen to me, and I do not know what will be done to you. Now, so subhanallah, when we imagine the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we imagine his fate in the afterlife. We all know what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's fate in the afterlife will be. And the Prophet ﷺ himself, he knew what his fate in the afterlife would be. He told us about the signs of the Day of Judgment. He told us about what the Day of Judgment itself will look like. The Prophet ﷺ knew that on the Day of Judgment, all of the messengers will be amassed and the people will go towards them for shafa'ah. And eventually they would come to the Prophet ﷺ and he would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to intercede on their behalf. The Prophet ﷺ knew that. That was knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. In attabi'u illa ma yuha ilay. This was knowledge that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given as wahi. But as a general rule, in terms of his in terms of his essence, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being told to inform you and I that he is limited as a human being. His limitations are subject to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him access to. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, he knows. Whatever ilmul ghaib has been revealed to him, he knows. Whatever dreams Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him, he knows. But that is simply a fadl from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to expose him to. So
there is no question in the mind of anyone who reads this ayah that the Prophet ﷺ is divine, or the Prophet ﷺ knows everything, or the Prophet ﷺ is in some way, shape, or form superhuman. He's beyond humanity. وَمَا أَنَا إِلَّا نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ, and I am but a clear and obvious warner to you. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ وَكَفَرْتُمْ بِهِ وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى مِثْلِهِ فَآمَنَ وَاسْتَكْبَرْتُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. In the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to tell everyone else that if this message that I am claiming is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this message is something that in reality is from Allah, and you reject it, and a witness from Bani Israel, from the children of Bani Israel, testifies about something similar to this Quran, and comes to believe in the Quran, while you, O people of Mecca, continue to persist in your arrogance, then how unjust are you? So in reality, when we think about this ayah, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, and why is Bani Israel mentioned in this ayah? There's a couple of things to note. The first is that the people who were surrounding the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were claiming him to be false. They were claiming him to be a liar. They were claiming him to be insane. And this claim also led them to claim that the Quran is also made up. The Quran is a forgery. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that this claim is baseless. First, because first and foremost, previously in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that if anyone lays a false claim of prophethood, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would eliminate them in this world, so that the common folk could be saved from that person's fitna, that person's fraudulent claim. Secondly, if the people of Mecca don't accept this argument, they should at least not overlook the possibility that this claim of the Prophet ﷺ is correct, and this book is actually from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They shouldn't overlook that possibility. And in fact, when we think about the people in Arabia who are the most learned, the people who are the most educated, an example of those people is given here. A learned scholar from Bani Israel, because the people from Bani Israel had a tradition of learning and teaching. They had synagogues in which they preserved whatever they claimed was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if a person who is a learned scholar from Bani Israel testifies that this book is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and comes to believe in that book from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you sitting here without knowledge are flat out rejecting it, then know that there might be something wrong with your flat out disregard. There might be something wrong with the way you're thinking, O people of Mecca. Inna Allah la yahdi al-qawm al-zalimin. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide a people who are oppressive and wrongdoing. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't name a particular scholar of Bani Israel. He just says a person from Bani Israel testifies that the Quran is correct. So Allah is not telling us about a specific person, but rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning that maybe such a situation has already arisen. Therefore, don't think about the fact that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and him being right or wrong is something you determine on your own. But rather, look at the people around you. Observe what the society that is unbiased is seeing the Prophet ﷺ as. We know in the people of Medina you had the great scholar Abdullah ibn Salam radiyallahu anhu. And he was a great scholar of Bani Israel who left his tradition. After he observed in the Prophet ﷺ what he saw, he came to know that this must be the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are people who are willing to let go of their entire tradition, their entire past, the thing that they were known for. Why? Because they were convinced that this is the truth. But the people of Mecca themselves, who had very little knowledge to do with how prophecies work and how prophethood worked, were quick to reject Islam instead of embrace Islam. And this ayah was revealed in Makkah to give them that wake-up call. So, in some narrations that you find in hadith, some of the Sahaba have narrated that this ayah is actually related to Abdullah ibn Salam, that famous companion from the people of Medina, who was actually one of the scholars of Bani Israel, and he came to accept Islam. وقال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا لو كان خيرا ما سبقونا إليه وإذ لم يهتدوا به فسيقولون هذا إفك قديم. Some of the people of disbelief, they made another claim. The people of Kufr, they said about the people of Iman, had this deen, had this Islamic faith been a good thing, these weak and poor people would not have got into it before us. These weak and poor people would not have accepted Islam first. Now this is highlighting a massive illness that was in the hearts of the people of Mecca. The people of Mecca had such a superiority complex associated with their money and power that they believed that if something was good, then we would find it first. And I know that sounds a little bit funny, but the fact of reality is, why are we being told this by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the hikmah in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaching us this lesson? The hikmah is there that you and I, as we progress in the world, as we become more educated, then we are susceptible to the same problem. When we find ourselves in social circles that are powerful, that are rich, that are successful, that have degrees, then you too will also be susceptible to the same illness, which is what? You look at rich people, you look at powerful people, they're not at the masjid. Why are these random masjid goers just regular people? They've got nothing better to do. They don't have goals and aspirations in life. This is how human beings eventually think. This is not isolated to the people of Mecca. This is a spiritual illness that comes into the heart of anyone who sees success. Because money corrupts people. This is not to say don't have wealth. This is not to say don't use power. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam sought out wealth and power. Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam sought out wealth and power. But the fact of reality is if a person is not cognizant of what the detrimental impact of success is, then they will fall prey to it. More often than not, they will fall prey to it. A person who doesn't recognize that an upgrade in life will always have them looking down on those who didn't upgrade, will always have them question the sincerity, the goodness, and the hearts of those less successful. That person who doesn't conceive that this is a possibility, the person who doesn't preemptively surround themselves with people whose concern is the hereafter, eventually they will disdain and look down on people whose concern is the hereafter. And this is a reality. Ask yourself. You think that people are doing that against you? You and I are doing it against other people too. We sometimes observe people, maybe those from third world nations, maybe those who didn't make the right choices in life. But the fact is, they could be going to the masjid more often than us. They could be fasting more than us. They could be percentage-wise more charitable than us. And often, that is the case, that the poor are more charitable than the rich. Statistically true. The most charitable nations in the world are the nations that don't have their basic human needs met. They're more empathetic. Why? Because their hearts have acclimated to the idea that this dunya is temporary. Point number one. Their hearts have acclimated to the idea that I don't always get what I want, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me when He wants. Their hearts have acclimated to the idea that surrounding myself with the less fortunate is not going to harm me. We've in turn put ourselves in positions when people come to the masjid, they look like they might ask me for $5. What do? I turn that way. It's like, yeah, no, he's standing over there. I'm going to go from there. This is just a subconscious thought that comes into the mind of many. And I'm not speaking for you. Your hearts are pure. I'm speaking about someone else. So the fact is that every single person in this ayah is being challenged with this idea Allah doesn't tell us about the people of Mecca just solely to tell us about the struggles of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's so that we also don't become qawm al-dhalimin. We could be susceptible to dhulm the same way. فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not harm one another. It's very possible that you fall into a state where you mutually engage one another with harm. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to have softened hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our hearts love the poor. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala place the love of the people that are less fortunate before our eyes and allow us to envy them for their constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst those whose huquq are not violated and those who do not violate the rights of others. SubhanAllah bihamdihi. Subhanakallah bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.